Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the We Own Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? From a Black American's perspective. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch this live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Let's go to work. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the We On Your Head podcast. We are simultaneous on Twitter Spaces, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are. Share the show, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. They done lit these Twitter streets up, and so it just cannot go unaddressed. For those of you in the Twitter space, can y'all hear me? Just put 100 or something up in the air if you can. Perfect. Shout out to everybody in the Twitter space. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. Shout out to the folks in the YouTube streets. Yeah, no, I appreciate you. So I do want to just state this on a recorded line. The last official live I did, which was Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow book. The last show I did, I had learned thereafter that my mother had left the building. And so I am really just now, actually getting back to what seems like some level of normalcy. So if it seemed like, well, Mel, you read the book and you just dropped and then you just stopped. That's true. I did. And that's the reason why. But also, I guess I do stop and drop and roll every now and then, but we're back. And the main reason why we're back right now is because these people are on the Twitter streets just straight up disrespecting Dr. Claud Anderson. Okay? And what they're really doing is showing their ignorance because they have no idea who he is. And that's a damn shame. And so there's a link in the YouTube chat where you can go directly to Dr. Claud Anderson's website and purchase every book that he's written. It appears that he also has some type of a special going on. I think it's in the Twitter Jumbotron as well. And I don't know if somebody can add that in there, but he also has a CD, which I need to make my way to getting that CD because there's some updated information. But the whole point of this space right here is to get into this book, PowerNomics. Now, of course, some of you are already aware, I did a book read discussion on Dr. Claud Anderson's Black Labor, White Wealth, which he really laid out some good historical, clear data. And it was not something that you just, like I told somebody yesterday in the space, his information is not something you just read at one time and then boom, just go on your way. This is some stuff that really is, I'm going to say offensive because it's like, damn, you are telling me the truth about me, about my lineage, about my people. And it hurts because the truth hurts. We dropped the ball. We fell asleep. There's some things we missed out on. That happened. And this book, PowerNomics, was copywritten in 2001. Okay. And here we are in 2023. And so anything that he's saying in any of these books about how dire the situation is at that time that he wrote the books, what do you think the situation is now? And at this time, when he was writing all the books, we didn't have legislators demanding that some piece of our government tax-paying dollars be broken off for Ukraine or the government will fail to operate. But that's where we're at now. So, yeah, Dr. Claud Anderson was a guest of some people on Twitter. And his appearance on that Twitter space pissed off a lot of trolls, and they're upset now with these bodacious ass questions talking about what did Dr. Claud Anderson ever do for anybody, for Black people? And we ain't doing that. This man has told us some things. So anybody that fails to understand or fails to embrace Dr. Claude Anderson, then they are just demonstrating their level of ignorance immediately, if not sooner. And shout out to one of the number one mods on this channel, Island Browning. Y'all do like Alan Browning say, do like she say. Hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't already. So we're going to get right into it. The YouTube channel is in the Jumbotron, so if y'all can, please subscribe. Like the video, get it in the algorithm. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to read the intro. I'm not going to read the dedication. I ain't going to read a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to jump right into it. But I will tell you this, I'll assign you some homework. If you bout this life, shout out to John Gullery on the YouTube streets. If you bout this life, how about you read the dedication, the introduction, and everything else, and then the next time we get together, you can jump up here and tell me what time it is, or you can share. And if you've been in any other spaces that have been discussing this book, then I welcome you to jump up on the stage, because right now that's what we need is conversation and clarification and just overall discussion on this outstanding work from Dr. Claude Anderson. I haven't read this whole book. I've just started it, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's just as good as the other book. This man ain't no joke. So let's get started. Part 1, How Winners and Losers Are Predetermined. And this is PowerNomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America by Claude Anderson, Dr. Claude Anderson. All right, let's get started. Chapter 1, Racism, Monopolies, and Inappropriate Behavior. Alice, which road do I take? Cheshire Cat, where do you want to go? Alice, I don't know. Cheshire Cat, then it doesn't matter which road you take. That's written from Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. The challenges we face. As the Cheshire Cat said to Alice, who was lost in a Wonderland fantasy, it doesn't matter much which road you take if you don't know where you're going. It is time for Black Americans to take a good hard look at where they have come from and where they are going. Are they moving forward or standing still? After centuries of participating in protest marches, race riots, and demonstrations, and pushing for integration and passage of an endless number of civil rights laws, Black Americans are increasingly sensing that something is wrong. They question whether or not they are on the right road. A comparative analysis of our socioeconomic conditions show that Black Americans have entered the new millennium much the same way they entered the previous 4 centuries, as an impoverished, powerless, and neglected people. Since there have yet to be any programs and public policies specifically offered to eliminate the plight of the Black masses, their future, like the past, looks bleak. Amidst a rising tide of white conservatism, the wealth and income gaps between majority white society and Blacks are widening. Nearly a half a century after the Supreme Court ordered racial desegregation, Black Americans still bear 6 to 8 times their proportional share of poverty, broken homes, homelessness, criminal incarceration, unemployment, and other social pathologies. Desegregation should have been about redistribution, wealth, power, and resources, not social integration. Social integration has only addressed the symptoms of our dilemma rather than the causes. As indicated, and there's a figure in this book, it is extremely difficult for Black people to progress when the same hands that held the whip still hold almost all the wealth and power. During centuries of Black enslavement and Jim Crow semi-slavery, the majority society secured and retained its inherited advantages, while a Black minority inherited a legacy of disadvantage in this race-based society. Whites acquired ownership and control of nearly everything of value, as well as a system for keeping Blacks non-competitive and powerless. The sheer existence and size of a growing Black underclass is prima facie evidence of institutionalized racism that manipulates symbols, resources, and power to advantage whites over Blacks. The reality of Black America's dilemma is that they are predestined to become a permanent underclass if they do not break free of the numerous disadvantages they have inherited. Blacks should get off the social road to nowhere. There are no yellow brick roads to the future, nor will Blacks simply stumble into wealth and power in a competitive society. To find a better road requires Blacks to unlearn old behavior models, strategies, and learned helplessness in race matters. Blacks must understand the nature of the competitive race and make a racial metamorphosis. They must decide where they want to go, get out front of their competitors, and work hard to get there first. If Blacks compete, they can expect to succeed and survive in the race for wealth and power. And I'm going to take a break here because when I was reading this, I got to thinking about the situation going on in New York, where the governor has, now she did all of this and then made the announcement, where the governor has talked to at least 400 employers and made a deal and said, oh, we want you to hire all these migrants who are on their way. None of those migrants need a job because a migrant is somebody who's passing through. Okay? Not passing through. You might give them a little set of victuals. You know what I'm saying? Put a little water in the canteen, but they need to keep moving on. But instead, the governor of New York has gotten together with at least 400 employers to give these quote unquote migrants jobs. So when I read this and Dr. Claud Anderson talking about get out in front, we need to be all up in front of these 400 employers and saying, no, if you give these people a job and just straight overlook us, then we have to boycott. We have to do something. And I would love for some people to come up on the stage because that typical, we going to stand out here with a picket and all that and a sign and all that, that's not sufficient. We have to find better ways to handicap these organizations when they decide to just straight up overlook us. So I'm going to keep on reading. Race, racism, and wealth. Although slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery ended generations ago, their legacies live on in various forms of structural racism. Contrary to popular notions about the concept of race, it is more than a biological grouping. Race is about financial, political, and social currencies. It is a form of stored wealth and power. Whiteness has monetary value. Knowing the origin and nature of the value of race is essential to any analysis of Black America's dilemma. It is important that Blacks know why the race problem refuses to die and how it is used to keep a non-competitive and powerless group. The word race first appeared with the emergence of the slave practice in the 16th century. Records indicate the word race was selected because the various European slave trading nations were in a contest competing to profit from the mineral and human wealth of Africa. The prize for winning the race was to develop a Western civilization using the wealth extracted out of Africa. Black people were non-competitors in the race. They were the prizes, so they could neither play nor win. How about that? Anybody want to come up on the mic? Black, I don't know if you, any thoughts, any commentary? Can y'all sign off? Let's chop this up. Let's break it down. Can we do a little bit of that? Anybody want to request and get up on the mic? Any thoughts or concerns? I'm checking the trap on the YouTube streets. Can I get 100? Can I get something in the air? Right on, Black. Thank you. Okay. So, and thanks to everybody that pulled up in the Twitter space. If you can, share it. Share this space. We'll keep on reading. All the competing slave trading nations, religions, and ethnic groups benefited and were advantaged by Black slavery. Slavery is most often approached in social and moral terms. It is seldom discussed in terms of the primary incentive that undergirded the slave trade: wealth building. Slavery must always be explained in monetary terms. Throughout the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, organized religion used doctrines to justify slave trading. During the same period, botanists and others in the biological sciences were studying and attempting to stratify plants and animals based upon their biological similarities and differences. They ordered plants and animals by species. Though it took nearly 300 years, the concept of race eventually merged with the concept of biological species. By that time, white Europeans had secured nearly total control of the world's wealth and resource powers. Their new concept of race established superiority on the basis of who controlled the wealth, power, and resources at that particular time in history. Wealth, power, and privilege became the prerogatives of non-blacks. Through intellectual sleight of hand, race became synonymous with the term species. In the mid-1800s, at that time, Charles Darwin developed the concept of biological race in its origin of the species, and it quickly became popular. Often called the survival of the fittest, Darwin's theories, as well as a number of other quasi-scientific concepts, were used by educators, politicians, and religious leaders to justify Black slavery and establish a qualitative ranking of inherited genes and human fitness. Now, here's what I want to say. Why do you think Dr. Claud Anderson highlighted that piece? Why do you think he needed us to know how this race, as we understand it now, what its origin was, and why this thing with Darwin is important? Is there anybody on the Twitter space that wants to answer that question or wants to share or chime in on that? Why do you think it's important for us to know this piece of how race was established? And while you guys are giving that some thought, John Gullery said all the people unemployed that are citizens, and the governor of New York met with 400 employers for non-citizens. Shaking my head, and nothing is said about that. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, that's another thing we got to figure out. How are we going to address that, y'all? Or are we going to sit back and just stay in the sunken place and allow that to happen and we just watch it? What are we going to do about that? That's the question. Okay, I didn't see no hands go up about, oh yeah, come on, Black.
So, oh man, yeah, you said 2001. That's the first thing I wanted to say. Wow, God bless the elder for being that far ahead of the curve. Yeah, 2001, that was 9/11. If we think about it, that's when we got into, man, this global conflict, this global war and terror, yada, yada, yada. So, they've been sending money overseas for a couple decades now. But yeah, the whole thing about the race and the division, that's all eugenicist. And so I can't put words in his mouth, but the way I would look at it is just recognizing the fact that this is who these people are. And quite honestly, prior to our enslavement, it was the Moors in Europe. And that was, I guess at the time, it wouldn't have been a racial thing. It would have been more of a religious thing. But the Pope, when he issued that enslaving our people, it was specific to the Black races, because prior to that, the Black races pretty much had dominated many parts of Europe. So for them, in their minds, we are their enemy, will forever be their enemy. And for me, you got to understand the fact that as long as these people exist, this will always be a problem, because this problem lives inside of them genetically. This is a part of who they are. It can't be cured. It can't be changed. It may be able to be controlled through power and might and authority, but they will always, at some point in time, whenever they get in a position of power, utilize that power to cause us harm.
And you know what, Black, when you You know what? When you started answering this question, what this made me think was what Dr. Anderson has done is highlighted the first, what do they call that? Oh, the word was just on the tip of my, gaslighting, the first propaganda. Because you're absolutely right. The Moors were holding it down. What's my man's name? The richest black man? Shoot, I can't remember his name off the top, but y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he was
Mansa Musa
Mansa
from King
Musa,
of Mali.
Mansa Musa all day. And so when you look at that, so we were rocking position. We were not what they described us and what policy and uh, uh, what is this called? Formula they created in order to identify us or tag us with. This was nothing but propaganda coming out the gate. That's the first, I would just call this the first propaganda as it relates to Black Americans. You had to come up with this. I mean, what the hell? Anyway, but it's all good because we're getting to know this. And I feel like for the trolls that are out here trying to undermine and devalue the contribution that Dr. Claude Anderson has made just by assembling all of this research, I mean, I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for the trolls. Let's keep reading. Naturally, those controlling the wealth and power put their cultural values and biological characteristics at the top of the racial order and blacks at the bottom, beneath Caucasians and Mongols, aka Asians. All the major European religious denominations at the time used the Bible to teach racial ranking with implicit black inferiority. During the civil rights movement of the 1950s and the 1960s, the concept of biological races was intentionally expanded to include cultural, religious, ethnic, and all Spanish-speaking language groups, which were competing with Black people for rights, space, and privileges. The concept of race was then diluted to an attitudinal level, and the term racism was used interchangeably with such terms as bias, prejudice, bigotry, and discrimination. Now, the term racism has become so amorphous that it has little meaning and is applied to all so-called minorities. If Black Americans are to resolve and reverse the legacies of slavery, they must view and treat racism based upon its original meaning and intent. And I'm going to tell you that that's exactly what they did with the DEI situation. They took DEI and have watered it down and covered everybody and their mama with it. That DEI really doesn't have any juice. And the only people benefiting from any type of DEI resource or programs or whatever, they're not Black folks. Black folks aren't even the majority of people running DEI programs in the workforce. So, based upon its original meaning and intent, that's how we have to view and treat racism, according to Dr. Claude Anderson. Okay, racism, a race without a finish line. Racism is a wealth and power-based competitive relationship between Blacks and non-Blacks. The sole purpose of racism is to support and ensure that the white majority and its ethnic subgroups continue to dominate and use Blacks as a means to produce wealth and power. Centuries of Black enslavement and Jim Crow semi-slavery resulted in the majority society becoming 99-foot giants and Blacks 1-foot midgets. This massive inequality in wealth and resources made Blacks non-competitive and totally dependent upon whites for the necessities of life. And I want to just jump in real quick. This is very much like the topic of the space I did earlier or last week, I think it was, where you had a white organization going against, and I don't know if this is a Black organization or not, but this organization gets venture capital funds from JP Morgan Chase, MasterCard, and this particular organization was looking for Black women to give at least $20,000 startup money to. But you had a white man who's, I can't remember the name of the organization, that filed a lawsuit and wanted that program to cease because it was quote unquote unfair. I mean, they don't care. They do not want us to be able to compete in any shape, form, or fashion, even if it's us giving us money. And so the first judge that they brought the lawsuit to, the judge said, "No, I ain't gonna do that. Let these people go ahead and give this money to these black women." They appealed that judge's decision, and the appellate court sided with the white group, and so now the thing's on hold. So it must gonna have to go to the Supreme Court. But the bottom line is, I mean, and look at this is not even a major thing. This is not even a major organization trying to give 100,000 white black women, $20,000. It's just a little company trying to, hook, do what they can, and they're just jumping in. Come on, Black, you didn't just jump on in, sweetheart. You know you got the mic.
Yeah, so this would be a good test case if anybody can get in touch with the people involved in that for lineage based benefits. This would be a really, like, the 14th Amendment. Use this case because because it's likely to go to the SCOTUS, and the SCOTUS could just refuse to hear it, and then the person who appealed would win, and then they would eliminate the case or eliminate that funding. So. And it's likely that they would, unless they get something that is new and exciting. The Supreme Court rejects a lot of cases every year. So this would be a test of the things that they've been talking about. And it actually would be really, really interesting to see how they judged on it based on what they've said this last year.
Yeah. And again, and I'm glad you said that, because also what's so sorrowful is the fact that they are using the Supreme Court decision on the, admission based on race and race-based pieces or whatever into these colleges. They're using that decision to now just to go after every damn thing, which is, we're not shocked. We figured that they wanted to. And look, we see the glee. They can't wait. Oh, look, so they can't use race to get into college, so you can't use race to give them some money. What I'd like to see, though, is this company to just bequeath or just donate or do whatever. I don't know how it would work for them for it to be advantageous to them as an organization, but they still, just still give the money to the black women. Because then how, then what are they going to use legally to prevent the organization from doing that? I mean, we still have to move and get around these things. Shout out to Real Talk with Lady D in the YouTube streets. Thanks for pulling up. Uh-oh, got a request going on. Yusuf, oh my God. Thank you, Yusuf. I'm going to go ahead and let you just come on and jump on this mic real quick, Yusuf. What's that? Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a student of Dr. Claud Anderson, so I support it. Just the topic that you all are talking about, one of the issues, so originally they did win in the local court, and then in the appeal court they lost. And it's around the fact that they're using the term contest. So I think that is what is, I believe from what I was reading, the people that are suing them, they're not technically trying to go after this particular organization, but it's more of a larger organization that actually funds them, and they found this, let's say, loophole or miswording that they're pretty much trying to attack. They certainly could. There's a number of different ways around it. I do agree with you all. As far as going, potentially this could be a case of going after just the lineage, but I don't believe they just give the money to, Native Black Americans. So that's the problem.
Yeah, that could be the case. Yeah, because what we don't know is how they define Black. So I guess, it's going to take a little bit of resource, but I tell you what we do know. I bet that white organization is not going I think they're operating from a term of flat blackness, period. Which, hey, if them stopping that lawsuit doesn't impact, Black Americans per se, okay. But we see what they're willing to do, and so at some point, Black Americans are going to be impacted by that. So we still need to get in front of this. We need to stop them from doing that. Moving forward in the book, it says true racism exists only when one group holds a disproportionate share of wealth and power over another group, then uses those resources to marginalize, exploit, exclude, and subordinate the weaker group. In America, it is whites who use wealth and power to marginalize, exploit, and subordinate. Blacks and whites can deny blacks employment, educational opportunities, business resources, a place to live, or the right to vote. Therefore, according to this definition, Black people cannot be racist. No group of Blacks has the power or exclusive control of resources to the degree that they can educationally, politically, economically, and socially exploit and marginalize the white race. Blacks can only react to racism and try to alter the conditions that racism creates. Despite the realities, there are numerous conservative Blacks who act as apologists for white racism and confuse the issue. A conservative Black radio talk show host in Los Angeles, for example, charges that Blacks are as racist as whites. His desire for white approval, as well as his ignorance of history, impedes him from understanding that white racism and Black prejudice are not the same. Blacks have a reason for their feelings about whites based on how they've been treated by whites. The white race, on the other hand, has never been marginalized by the Black race. Racism reinforces the legacies of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery. Blacks have been unable to escape from those legacies because the majority society acknowledges the operation of racism in the distant past, but minimizes its present significance. And they do that even now. And again, this book was written in 2000 or copyrighted in 2001. Here we are in 2023. If this ain't, is any lies detected? Does it seem as though Dr. Claud Anderson was missing the mark on what he just said here? Feel free to jump off the mic or jump on the mic. I'm about to throw some mics out here. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Black.
So again, I'm going to go back to the history. I think if you're looking at it just from an American perspective, you can obviously make that argument because it's factual. But these people, and they brought in 100 million Europeans from like the early 1800s all the way up until recent times. So we're not really dealing with American history, even though we live in America. We're really dealing with 2,000 years of history, if not much longer, and they have a long memory of the history, whereas part of our it's not really an issue, but our lack of understanding is the fact is that we don't have that very long viewpoint on the history. And that's what institutions and control over the education curriculum would give our children so that they would understand this long history that is unlikely to change. There may be, you could have a white friend and white coworker who seems to be nice. But at the end of the day, you're competing against each other for the same resources. And if they have the choice between their family having, the luxuries of life and you starving, 9 times out of 10, they're going to let you starve.
Right. So. You starving as you generate that wealth for their behalf because they've got access to the things that we're busting our... Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome point there, Black. Awesome point. The burdens of inequality. The concept of race has progressed from the international competition for wealth and power to religious doctrine to biological classification to personal attitude. Yet, conditions and opportunities are unequal between competing minority groups. There has been no equal sharing of burdens in our equal opportunity society. Members of ethnic, class, gender, disabled, religious, Spanish language, and sexual orientation groups have not been treated in a manner equal to Blacks. This nation has never enacted and supported public policies and laws that have denied non-Blacks access to the nation's educational and political, social, and economic systems. Look at what they're doing with the immigrants. They're coming over here getting free education and money to do it. These groups have not been customarily lynched, castrated, exploited, and denied the fruits of their labor. Blacks are the only group of people forced to practice capitalism without capital in the richest and most capitalistic nation on earth. These facts, coupled with the majority society's total unwillingness to approve corrective action and reparations for descendants of Black slaves, reveal the true nature of racism against Black people. And I'm going to ask this question. What do we do about this, y'all? How is that supposed to be addressed? How do we address that? We're asking for, come on, Yusuf, come on.
I do want to jump in because, when you talk about racism, one thing I personally, I use the term anti-Black, and I think we need to focus in on utilizing terms that highlight our, aggrievement. Because racism, technically, based off the definition, a Black person could be racist to a white person. Yes, and Dr. Claud Anderson lays out a perspective that, talking about, only, white folks. But, when we're talking about anti-Semitic, you know exactly what that means. And it hits different than you just saying someone's racist. No one ever says, when someone's, talking ill towards a Jewish person, oh, you're being racist. No, they say you're anti-Semitic. So I think we need to really utilize the, verbiage in terms that, specifically talk about how people are, being, bigoted towards our group of people. Yeah. And I don't think right now, other Black people use anti-Black, talking about other Black people, but I believe it would be to our benefit if we start utilizing that when we're talking about white people or whoever else, is being, racist, quote unquote.
I like that because it's like one of my old professors said, let's capitalize on this linguistic capital. And so you're right to state it as such, anti-Blackness, anti-Black. There's no misunderstanding. Let me see, what's your name? The DP, the cable guy.
Yeah, the cable guy.
What's T, baby? Thanks for pulling up. What's going on?
Nah, I love the space. I agree. That we got to take advantage of how we use our words, because words are powerful. And and I love that book because he was just saying, as far as they put Black people in a position to have to play in this capitalistic world with no capital, in the biggest, the most, the most powerful country on earth, where capitalism was created. But I almost, when I raised my hand in a sense, because I wasn't sure where I thought my man was going with it, but I agree with everything I was just saying. But the one thing I want to make sure that we take away from PowerNomics is that, when we really talking about racism, we're not really thinking about, or really, we shouldn't be focused on people talking about us or saying stuff to to a degree you got to protect and stay on code, but as far as the real racism is us being locked out economically. And focusing on us building, and DP the cable guy working with JT the plumber, getting bids together for federal government. You know what I'm saying? Buying our tools and equipment from Ray Ray's. You know what I'm saying?
Ray Ray's a tool guy. But
Yeah, you feel
let
me?
me see if I can get you to clarify something for me, because I want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that when we talk about or we think about racism, it should not be in terms of that they called me the N word or they this and that.
Yeah,
We need you're saying that that's stuff we should allow to roll off our back for the most part, and focus more on the more heinous activities that they put against us. Is that what you mean?
yeah, because like Dr. Claude always say they they hate us because we black,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
but they can oppress us because we're poor.
Mm.
So if we focus so much on the symbolism of being, you know, called something or, you know,
Right.
being told you're something, when
Mm.
you know who you are,
Yeah.
you know, as long as we know who we are, then all of that really doesn't matter. I mean,
Right.
shit, we can all slang words back and forth, you know.
Mm. Very
We the
true.
best at roasting anyway.
Come on.
But at the end of the
Ain't that
day,
it?
yeah, at the end of the day, if we stay on that type of frequency, it's going to keep us in the same merry-go-round we in, gang
Right.
banging
All
and them
right.
name banging. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and you know, focusing on what we're called, and you know, and what everybody else talking about instead of
Right.
where the money at. Like
Right.
where the money?
Right.
I got on one space and I asked. I'm gonna make this quick,
Sure.
but I got on a couple of spaces actually, and because I've been since I read PowerNomics in 2020, I've been working on myself. Now I've been able to start hiring, and I found a niche to be able to hire nationally. You
Mm.
know, teaching people trades and you know actually getting out there and really being able to build something
Yeah.
crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my industry it's a $1 trillion industry, low
Mm.
voltage, but I've not got one black person to be come get my nephew a job, come get my son is out here, he got you know, so we got to mind state has to really make a shift. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
really be on that Powernomics tip.
Sure
I
enough.
land.
Sure enough. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. DeAndre, I see you got your hand up, and then Black, of course, it'll be you next. Go ahead, DeAndre. What's up? Thanks for pulling up. What's T? Shout out to Purple Couch on the YouTube streets. Thanks for pulling up, Purple Couch. What's going on, DeAndre? Hey.
Peace to the room. I think Black had his hand up before me, so I'll go ahead and let him go first.
Okay. Go ahead, Black.
No, you got it. You got it. I'll go after.
Okay. Man, I think PowerNomics is a phenomenal book, man. It really pushed me to learn more about economics and really start learning, you know, what actual racism is, what it looks
Mm.
like to vertically integrate within our community, and you know how we can use the products and goods and services that we already provide. And I'm sure Black majority can attest to it. To me, you know, I think we need to take that concept a step further, and you know what Black majority is talking about in having state majority,
Mm-hmm.
because that is going to have the most power. When we're talking about vertical integration, it allows us to regulate entire state systems and ecosystems. It allows us to exercise different taxes. And that's going to truly help us to grow when we're looking at our lower poverty-stricken class in Black America. Because one of the things that we'll often see is that we start building together economically, but we almost don't have a solution for those that just don't have the money. You know,
Right.
whether they have it, or you know they say that they misspend it, or
Mm-hmm.
they don't spend it on the right things, and you know all these other things. And so for in reality, a lot of our people just need someone to buffer them through that change, because as you guys said, there's a paradigm shift that has to happen. The way that they think and operate has to change, and that's not going to change overnight. Also, there has to be results. What I see a lot of times when we join or we do things, there aren't results that I won't say there aren't results. I would say that results take a long time. It takes a little bit of time for us to see certain results, and so our lower demographic of Black people oftentimes can't wait that long. They can't
Mm.
wait 5 years to see a return on their money, the dollars that they put in.
Right.
So when we start looking at things like that, I want to, when we talk about vertical integration, this is why I think the Black migration strategy is so crucial, because then we could control those monies. We could control the money that comes from HUD. We can control the money that comes from all these other components, taxes, and actually give them time to grow. We can buffer them through those kind of processes so that the mindset actually takes hold. And I kind of land my plane right there.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. Just shout out to Ann Kimball Hill on the YouTube channel. Hey, Mel, my grandfather always used to teach us that we have to buy Black even if it costs a little more, because it uplifts the community. Big businesses runs U.S. out of business with lower costs. Shout out to that. Go ahead, Black, jump in. Thanks for that comment, Ann. Go ahead, Black.
Yo, shout out to Deonta and DP, the cable guy.
Right.
Man, so I'm gonna knock out what she just said. I wanna actually, I love that, because I said that in a space recently. Oftentimes, Black brick and mortar businesses are purchasing items at retail cost, and then they mark up from there. We don't have access to the wholesalers, and that's usually the reason why things are priced a little bit higher, because we don't have the access. So that is definitely an issue. And, if you love and support your people, definitely pay a little bit of extra so they can keep the doors open, so they can pay the bills and everything else. But the last part of the book that you read, I was just like, wow, it was so depressing, but it was also very angering. And it made me think, if another Black group was in our neighborhood and they were treating us like that, or they were saying those things to us,
right.
I know in my past, we would be ready to attack.
Throw down.
Like it would be physical violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I think about California, I think about Chicago, I think about Texas, I think about these immigrants from the south of the border coming in, and all the conflicts that they've had in an active street war for decades in Miami as well. The last time Reagan gave asylum and amnesty to 3 million of these people, or 3 million plus. But then when we look at the white degenerate society, the domestic terrorists, the true racists, they continually do this to us, and yet very few of us outside of the Black liberation movement have been willing to meet that with some level of,
strategy.
I always say equal and opposite force. Equal and opposite force. And listening to that again is so upsetting and so angering that it makes me wonder, in 2001 when the book came out, the people who actually have read it over the years, if that part just kind of, they internalized it but didn't really think to act on it or anything of that nature, because it sounds like he put that in there to inspire some feelings of anger, which I know I did with my book. I really wanted people to be angry reading the book so that they would be inspired to do something. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and did it have, because here's the truth. And I said this in somebody's space last night. Look, Dr. Claud Anderson he does not have the personality type that is I just want to talk to y'all a little bit about racism. If y'all got a minute. He is not coming that way. He ain't playing with y'all, and he ain't playing about the subject. And so he's not about to play see, if you could just hand me that whipped cream over there, I'll put a little bit of that on. And in 2001, he's already sounding the alarm in 2001. So, and this is a shout, this is to the trolls. And for anybody who's, weaving back and forth, for anyone to expect him to come out now and find this, cute way of saying it, we passed all that. We're past that. So you're either with the program or you're not. So let's really start there. So again, all of these things that he's bringing out, hey, how do we address it? And definitely, how do we address this thing going on in New York? And I'd love for somebody to either put it in the comments or say something, jump up on the mic and say something. How are we going to address this governor already facilitating and coordinating with 400 employers to ensure that these migrants have jobs? And we know we've got people, American citizens, Black Americans as well, that have been laying up under viaducts and things of that nature for years. And let's jump to Chicago real quick. They have the mayor. There's some conflict going on now where they're trying to put these real permanent style tents up in a certain vacant lot in Chicago for the migrants. But y'all didn't think about none of this during in 2000. What was that? 17, when we had that 53 degree below zero winter going on. And the folks been up under the viaducts all this time. But why are you motivated now to show, they just want to make a better life? Well, what the hell you think we've been trying to do? So what, are we going to stay in the sunken place and watch it happen? Or are we going to do something about it? And I think this is exactly what Claud Anderson is trying to, quote unquote, inspire us to do, to use Black's term. Deontra, I'm going to go ahead and let you go, and then I'll get back into the book. Go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, I just kind of like wanted to speak it too. And I think like you say, one of the reasons why Dr. Claud Anderson moved racism from being a thing about just skin color or behavior or actions to money, because Black people understand money. Black folks, we understand money. It don't matter what class or level we on, we understand money. And turning racism to being about money should have activated us on a higher level. The only thing is we didn't understand what money looked like aggregated and collected. And so it's really hard to come up with certain types of solutions when we're not aggregating our wealth. Because like Dr. Claud Anderson outlined, he say racism is a team sport. It's not something that white men or Chinese men or Mexican men, they're doing alone. They're doing this collectively together. So the only true way for us to really address some of these problems and issues is we have to put our money together, because at the end of the day, that is what makes a capitalistic country go round. It's about resources. And, Dr. Claud Anderson outlined that personally in PowerNomics. He let us know, hey, y'all, it's about resources. Whoever controls the resources control what happens and what doesn't happen. Black folks, in order for us to control what can happen to us and what doesn't happen to us, there's no other solution. It's not getting politicians in office. It's not, because even when we talk about getting politicians in office, we got to have money to push their message out. We got to have money to get them advertising and marketing. You got to have money for them to get into the certain primaries. If you don't even have a certain amount of money, you can't even get on certain tickets. So, when we look at a lot of things, our exclusion in America almost always has come down to our wealth. How much money can we leverage and activate and control things? And, it's not the popular opinion to say that in certain cases, in certain battles, we just have to realize that we can't win those fights and we need to figure out a different strategy. And like I say, I think the best strategy that we got for a lot, aggregating our wealth in a short period of time is migration. We got to be willing to let these cities, like Chicago, go. LA, we got to let those cities go. We can't control those cities. Dr. Claud Anderson put his plan out 20 years ago for us to begin to work on these. So he was already predicting what's happening 20 years ago, so that we had time to address it. Now we just have to realize and concede, like, we can't have these cities. We got to go and start aggregating and living together, building together, getting control of factories, manufacturing, production. We got to do these things. We can't keep trying to say, well, we want this governor or this mayor to do this, and in reality, we don't have the money to make them do it. We don't have the control of resources to make them do it. The reason why immigrants are getting what they're getting is because there are white men who benefit from low labor. And so these white men that own these factories and these companies, they want immigrants because they know that they can pay them under the table. They can pay them less than what they would have to pay Black Americans to do those jobs. So it benefits them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they do it.
Right. Yeah. I'm just so well, Deandra, just so well articulated. And I thank you for that. Because you actually have offered a calming, soothing overview. And so I'm grateful for that, because that in and of itself is enough to just, fly off the handle on it. Let me keep moving through here a little bit. Racism and other legacies of slavery predetermined the success of Black Americans as a group. One of the most glaring examples of inherited inequalities is wealth distribution. Black America's percentage of ownership of the nation's wealth remains where it is, or as you were, where it was in the 1860s on the eve of the Civil War. At that time, when nearly every Black person in America was either in full slavery or semi-slavery, Blacks owned 0.5% of this nation's wealth. The emancipation of enslaved Blacks in no sense rendered social justice and economic recompense. Today, more than 140 years later, we are 100% free, yet Black Americans still own only 0.5% of this nation's wealth. Today, the income of Blacks as compared to whites has regressed to the level it was at the end of the 1960s. Approximately 38% of the Black population is beneath the poverty line, and another 1/3 is marginal, just above the poverty line. The limited assets that Black Americans most often have, such as automobiles and personal effects, depreciate rather than appreciate in value. Blacks even find that our homes, usually our most valuable assets, have a limited market and prices are dictated by urban renewal, expressways, or gentrification. The average Black person passes on 0 assets to future generations. The typical white family is more economically stable and secure. Approximately 87% of this nation's economic assets are now frozen within the dominant white society and are passed on from one generation to the next in such forms as stocks, bonds, land, businesses, trust accounts, endowments, foundations, and insurance policies. Therefore, white children are privileged to enter the world with 87% of the resources that they need to succeed in life already in their families, race, communities, businesses, schools, government, or social organizations. Thus, succeeding generations of whites can access these wealth resources over and over again. No Lies Told, copywritten in 2001. Here we are in 2023. Where do we stand? I wonder, are we still at the 1.1%? Where are we at with that? I wonder.
I was talking to a friend yesterday. He's like really into crypto and whatnot. And we kind of ended the conversation kind of coming to the understanding of when we talk about circulating the Black dollar, if you're not banking Black, you really can't circulate the money. Because, even if we support Black-owned businesses, that money then goes to, even if, if we're saving it or even just, having an operating expense, it goes to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever bank that you're actually using. And then them, once it's in the bank, they're able to use 10 times whatever money that you have, you make. So, we came to the conclusion, because we were thinking about starting, or he was thinking about starting business, and we were talking about bank accounts. If you really are being intentional about supporting Black, you have to use a Black-owned, bank. Like, to me, they pretty much, like, every time if I have, $10,000, then that means that Black-owned bank has $100,000 that it can loan out to another Black person. And, ideally, these banks, you have to hold them accountable to make sure that they're, have the proper programming and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually, doing those numbers. But it's very similar to like HBCUs. 80 to 90% of all doctors are, are from HBCU graduates and so on and so forth, as well as these black banks need to be making up of 80 to 90% of home loans, business loans, and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of where we ended the conversation.
Sure, absolutely, and that's good information and good a good standard to and good expectation to put out there. Black, you got it, and then DeAndre, you got it.
Okay, man, shout out to Yusef. So, man, we've had a space on black banks and how the industry is regulated, and so here comes the problem. As you go up to the layers and the levels of American society, you start to realize, and I'll send you a bunch of news articles about it, but start to realize the way the banks are regulated from the federal level, from the state level, that black banks are just like black businesses and black individuals, because the regulation requires them to put their deposits with these white banks. There's a bank in Chicago that the state legislator said, okay, we're going to put 20 million, that's off the top of my head, into your bank. The problem became that it was too expensive for them to service the $20 million. So because of the way the system is constructed, oftentimes black banks can't loan to the black residents in the community and black businesses, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where the systemic part of racism, right, quite literally, is overwhelmingly evident when it comes to the few black banks that remain. And this is why you want to have, again, black majority states where the states can actually regulate the banks within the state, credit unions, et cetera, to protect them from the system that exists to literally shred them apart.
And okay, thank you for that information, Black, because that leads me to question, what type of flexibility would that bank have, or does that bank have in trying, because it sounds like, hey, we want to help you out and we want to help out your people. And so we're going to just, overwhelm you with all these funds. And so to know that it was too expensive for the black-owned bank to operate based on what this good gesture was, did the bank have any authority or ability to go back either within their self or to the federal government and say, listen, by putting this much money on here, we're putting them at a disadvantage. They can't do it. So, or was that going to take an act of Congress and all this and that? Was there flexibility to modify the way the money was placed on the black bank so that they could help them, as opposed to just say, sorry, we tried it, but you guys couldn't afford it?
Just as a guess, probably, likely. The question becomes, will they do it, and will they do that consistently? The answer is obvious, because no, they haven't, and they probably won't. Could they do it? There's a lot of things they could do and should do, but unfortunately, they're not going to do it. That's just the reality.
Right. Because it sounds like, the institution, yet again, is set up to, it sounds like it's set up to appear as though we're trying to provide you with equality, but you guys just can't handle it. That's what it sounds like. So go ahead, DeAndre, and then you, Yusef. You got it, DeAndre. Okay, Yusef, what's T?
Yes. So one of the things the whole point of banks, they're supposed to lend money, and if they're not able to lend money, then I think that's what your black majority's talking about. They have to lend a certain amount of money, or they're not being a good fiduciary of the funds. One of the things that when we're talking about black businesses not receiving loans, there's so much paper. Let's say red tape. There's so many things that you have to navigate and understand, and actually have experience, or have someone that has experience to actually successfully even get funding. And some of those businesses are like what is it called? Every business, when you get an EIN, it has a particular code. And unless you, if you're trying to get money, so let's say if you're a truck driver, real estate, things that are very quote unquote predictable, that aren't less risky, you're less likely to get money. So the banks want you to take a level of risk. So not only it takes a little longer for you to pay off the loan, different things like that. And oftentimes, if you're not trying to, you have to show a track record as well as, track record of success, as well as have the correct business code for you even to, pre-qualify, particularly. But, I am interested in, please definitely send me the links that you were talking about. I think it definitely would do a lot of good when we're talking about just supporting Black businesses. There's the FDIC, like there was a particular bank in, the what is it called? The Silicon Valley Bank. Mm-hmm. And they just specialize on problems dealing with, the startups. And we have similar, or not similar, but we have unique problems in the Black community that a bank that understands our unique challenges as far as, being a small business, they can provide different solutions and make adjustments that are favorable for us. Like one of the biggest ones is that a lot of, entrepreneurs or business owners are just one person businesses, and a bank can help, us make payroll and actually provide the type of education on how to properly scale. And these are things that are, I'm not going to say completely unique to the Black people, but it is a overwhelming, glaring issue that we have so many self-employed Black people, but they don't know how to create jobs for others.
Right.
Or at least, whether they're just being fearful of not making payroll. There's a number of different programs that having, a institution that you can turn to as opposed to, maybe a friend here. I think oftentimes when we think about, let's say, the Boule class and these other people, is that we think they're the gatekeepers of information, which is true because we don't have institutions. If we had the proper institutions where people could look for and believe that they're responsible for providing, information to all of the community as opposed to, selected members, or you have to, do something for the membership. I think not only our whole community, would be a lot more transparent with one another, as well as, everybody would have access to the same, growth type of, information and knowledge.
Yeah, you said something that made me think, Yusuf, and I appreciate your contributions all the time. I think I would like to see the bank or lending records that were that demonstrate how these migrants and non-Black people have been able, what their opportunity to receive funding was, especially for migrants and such. What loopholes or what care packages, for lack of a better term, did they put in place? Such as, because they're not citizens. Two, they haven't been here as long as, we've been here. So, most banks, you have to have a residence and be there for 3 years and been on the job for at least, 3 or 4 or 5 years of, same line of work and blah, blah, blah. What are you doing for the migrant? Because how is it that it's easier for the migrant to get access to these funds and the money necessary to open up businesses, but yet we as citizens, when we go here and we've been here our whole damn life, and so have our ancestors, we somehow still can't seem to get access to these funds. So I would like for that kind of information to be made public, so we can begin to either say, look, just like you guys are, New York, you got 400 organizations that is about to hire migrants only. We're going to be in line, and whatever, if you're not requiring them to have experience or this, that, and 2/3, and you're about to pay them way over this quote unquote $15 an hour, you better be offering the same damn thing to a Black American or it's something's going to have to be reconciled. And so I would like for us to now start maybe demanding, or some type of way, being able to keep a record of how, who's getting what, and is the playing field level? Is it fair? Deandra, I see your hand is up. I'm going to read this last piece of paragraph, and then I'm going to turn this mic over to you. Dr. Claud Anderson goes on in here to say, what is wealth? Wealth refers to the net value of a person, group, or community, less their liabilities or debt at a given point in time. It is stored value. Income, in contrast, refers to a flow of dollars over a period of time. With rare exceptions, most Blacks are so marginalized that they own and control little wealth or resources anywhere, including in their own neighborhoods. The ancestors of enslaved Blacks were forced to concentrate simply on surviving, pursuing civil rights and integration. They had little to bequeath to their descendants. Even though they succeeded in their social and civil rights efforts, their children cannot inherit welfare, food stamps, public housing, or a good job. So I am going to stop right here as far as the reading is concerned. Up next, though, is going to be 3 major impediments to Black competitiveness. It's looking like Dr. Claud Anderson is stating that maldistribution of wealth and resource powers is one of the major impediments. Inappropriate behavior patterns. Okay, is that where we're going to see? I don't know what he's going to say about this, but I wonder if they're them coming up with, well, you're an immigrant, you only been here 24 hours, but we're going to loan you $20,000 to open up your own immigrant food restaurant. But for the Black life, sorry, your credit score ain't hitting. You ain't lived here long enough. You ain't this, you ain't that. Is that an inappropriate behavior pattern? And then lack of a national plan for empowerment. So that's really what's coming up next in this book. Deandra, you got it. What's going on?
Yeah. So kind of like to your question, what you were saying about how immigrants get funding and things like that. Well, so it's because we're part of a minority group. This is the biggest factor in why Black people continue to get left out of the resources when it comes from the government, because we've allowed ourselves to be pulled into that minority. And when they look at minority data, they don't disaggregate it. They don't set forward, okay, how much resources is going to non-native Black Americans and how much resources are going to immigrants, new Black people. So they can say, well, we sent money to the Black community, although all those Black people were immigrants who've already been indoctrinated into white supremacy. We can say that we've given money to minorities, although that money went primarily to Jewish and white women. We can say we've given money to minorities, although a good portion of that money went to white representation in the LGBTQ communities. So they have money that has been set aside. The problem is we as a Black people, as what Dr. Claud Anderson said, we don't have a national plan or agenda that has been accepted and that gets pushed forward by our Black candidates, our Black leaders, whether that be in the political field, whether that be just in our general neighborhoods and communities, sheriffs, district attorneys, judges. None of them have a plan or agenda that they've agreed to uphold and to stand by when they get into those positions. So even if we wanted to disaggregate that data, we would still have to go through those links and strides just to get the proper reports to see exactly how much money is going to Native and Black Americans versus immigrants, Black immigrants, or minority immigrants and things like that. So there is funding. Again, we just get caught up in that minority complex.
Deandra, I need to ask you a follow-up question to your statement. So under a Black state migration, Black state majority, would there be, and Black, I know you can answer this question. I know you can. But under a Black state majority, would our ability to control and actually harness that and make that work for us, would we have greater ability to do that under those circumstances? Or is that still going to be something we're going to have to be fighting for?
Oh yeah, most certainly. Because so once most funding comes to cities or states, the state usually is who divvies it out to the different municipalities within that state. So usually there's a state, HUD, like Texas. Texas, we have a state HUD. And Texas HUD then gives money to all the different municipalities within the state of Texas. So us having a majority code, but we have to take those positions. We have to be in those offices. We can't just be like, oh, well, it's a lot of black people that live in this state. If we don't take the power position, if we don't run and become commissioners, if we don't become the directors, if we don't become the city council persons, and not just city council, the city manager, because city managers have way more authority about who they hire, who they fire than the city council does. The city council appoints the city manager once they go through whatever requirements or rigor that is required. But after that point, the city manager hires the directors of the department. So when it comes to individualized cities, whoever your community development director is, that's who gets to say, that's who's putting out the information about what money the city got from HUD or from the state HUD. Or even if the city got money directly from the federal treasury, or they got money directly from a federal department and they didn't get money from the state department. Those are the individuals who knows when that money is coming, how it's supposed to be spent, and who it gets spent when.
Well, sir. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Yusuf. You got it, sweetheart.
Damn, I forgot what I was going to say. So
it's okay.
But yeah, you were cooking.
He was cooking.
Damn.
Hold up.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, well, that's okay, because you always come through with the good spices. So listen, I want to thank. Go ahead. Yeah.
If you were talking, the conversation was talking about immigrants and how are they getting funding and whatnot. I've referenced this movie before. It's a documentary called "The Search for General Tso," and it pretty much gives a history on how Asian people, or at least a particular province, and the majority of Asian people, when they first migrated here or immigrated here, were only from a particular province, and how they use being a minority to their advantage. So when we're talking about, when I was mentioning, the banks and different things like that, they pretty well. I don't want to. I suggest everybody, watch the documentary. It's called "The Search for General Tso," and I'll leave it at that. But it pretty much outlays how certain immigrant groups, based off of their country and their culture, they use that to their advantage. They this whole concept of working, living in 10 people to a 2-bedroom house as a
means in which to
and different things like that, and how they are getting funding.
Sure.
I do agree that the government, what Dante was saying as far as how they don't sparse out who's getting these different payments, but there is a great advantage if you are in the minority or you have less numbers. There are strategies that you can utilize to actually make it an advantage.
Right. Well, because I know they do keep records. We know they keep records. But what I want to know, especially within the past 6-7 years or more, I want to see what is it for the uniform for when you're getting a mortgage. I think it's a 1003. I think. I want to see those compared, the same loan application paperwork and the underwriter's requirements. I want to see that back to back or side by side with that of a Black American. Same everything, same age, same number of people in the family, same income, if any, aka for the immigrant. And is the immigrant getting more of that resource, and why? Or is the Black American getting less of the resource, and what is being held against them? Is what is being held against them also being held against the immigrant? Is it even being evaluated? Does the immigrant even have to quote unquote compete in that particular area, such as credit score or length of residency or length on the job? You get what I'm saying? I would like to see, especially now that they've been here and they've been cooking. So let's see, what kind of real handout are y'all giving these folks? I want to see it. Go ahead, Deandra. Yusuf, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was in the federal and state contracting grant space.
Mm-hmm.
You can see how the government and your local government allocates funding. And like, I'm based in DC right now. I'm actually going to be in Delaware for about a week, tomorrow till maybe the 12th. I might extend it. But anywho, you can see how they allocate funding. In DC, we're almost majority Black. But if you're looking at like, they have a Latino Economic Development Corporation, and that's not even based in DC. It's actually in Arlington, Virginia. And they received, I think, this was about 3 months ago when I was looking, they received about $20 million allocated to them, and it was on different tranches. And there's no Black, economic development arm or anything like that. I think a lot of the time is that Black people, when immigrants come here, they're marketed to, this is a land of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Most countries do not provide all of the different social programs. So when immigrants come here, they've, mastered or the social programs,
right,
and how they do the numbers. So we talk about, white people have the majority of people on, certain programs, but a lot of these economic development arms and things like that, what they do, while they do track every individual, but they also, when you give a group or a agency, $20 million or $10 million, you're now giving them a lump sum.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about how immigrants aren't getting that type of money or whatever the case may be, because how Black and white people are classified, it's like, oh, this individual did this. When you're talking about immigrants, they just get a bucket of money, just
right,
like the Ukraine. They give them billions of dollars, and there's
right,
no itemized list on what that money is going for.
So
when people are actually talking about, are immigrants and folks like that actually getting that type of money, they're saying not, because they're comparing apples to oranges, because how immigrants receive money
is a whole different avenue.
Right. A whole, and they're not,
right,
recording them properly.
So here's what I'm getting at, and Commander, I see you up here. I'm going to holler at you next. But so, and yes, you're absolutely correct, Yusuf. You're right. But what I'm getting at is based on that, this is one of Rella's terms. It's an actual term, but based on those set asides and the requirements and the parameters of those set asides, that has automatically put them in a class above us, for lack of a better term. And so now we are subjected to some requirements that, coming out the gate, we can't meet. So even though we're applying for a $300,000 loan, you're not getting it to us because of this manufactured ass requirement, but yet and still they're getting a $300,000 loan, and those same good sense requirements don't apply. So if a migrant can come through here and you don't care about their residency or this or that or 2/3, and they still have their passport or they still have this and that, then why are we being required to have, X number of years of residency and X number? You see what I'm saying? This is, to me, where some of the conversation has to come in, and where we have to start disrupting that. Just like we need to disrupt that 400 employers ready to give these migrants a job. And if you notice, even that governor said, they just want to come through here and get a good piece of the American dream. How dare you tell me or to speak to me as though I need to feel some level of compassion for someone coming over here to take advantage of an American dream that is continually being withheld from me, or continually not being made available to me equally. That's a problem. And I'm sorry. These people in Chicago specifically that have been living up under these viaducts, and they won't thinking nothing about giving them some level of shelter. And matter of fact, a couple, 3 years ago, they went through and they started tearing all their stuff down. Talking about, y'all, we're not going to have this. You're tearing their stuff down. You're not offering them an alternative. But now you get these other people coming in, and now you're allowing them to sleep inside the police offices and things of that nature. It's clearly some biasness going on. And are we going to remain in the sunken place and watch it happen? Or are we going to do something about it? Commander, you got it. Let's see. Unless you went down. DP, I'm going to let you come through, and then we'll go to... wait a minute. Here comes the commander back. Go ahead, DP, and then we'll go to the commander. Go ahead, DP.
Yeah, so I mean, of course, I mean, we gotta realize that it's not. I don't think that there's one move we can make that's going to really change how the dominance of society has placed us into that underbelly. So I mean, it's really we gotta work together. I don't know. I don't want to spoil the book for a lot of people, but Dr. Claud Anderson starts to lay out like all these different innovative and creative type of ways that we can create our own resources and to our, even in our state now, because like one of the brothers was just saying, like until we financially can actually pay for the majority of our policies, like it fits too many of their agendas for them to continue to put the buffer class higher ranks over us. I mean, to be honest,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
and as long as we're doing stuff, but as long as we're not targeting those particular egregious, blatant acts.
Yeah, it's blatant now.
It's blatant.
They see that we're
in a sunken place.
Yeah, and they see that we're slowly waking up, so they really flooding it even heavier now.
Thank you. And as long as we don't address it, then they can keep on doing what they're doing. Commander, let me let you go. DP, I appreciate you so much. DP, Commander, we're going to hear from you, then from Yusuf, and then from Deandra. Let's go.
Hey, thank you. First things first. What's up, everybody? The host in the room. Thank you for talking about PowerNomics. Thank you for discussing Claud Anderson. It's always good to hear people talking about our ancestors and talking about Black intellectuals who actually support the interests of our community. So I want to start off with that. That is always very, very important. Also supporting our Black intellectuals, because they're not ever getting enough support in our regular academic school system. So hearing our own people taking on initiative to support those people like that, that's a good thing. That's always a good thing. I grew up like around in the 90s, and when they were talking about Dr. Claud Anderson, like some of the people wasn't adhering to what he was talking about. It's good to see now this going around that there's more people receptive, and they're taking the book and internalizing and seeing how they can apply it to their neck of the woods. So that's always good to see.
Absolutely.
And very important to see, because it shows progression within our group of people. And that's something that we have been lacking for a while. It's not a shot at, it's just where we at as a people, but we can grow and learn. So those are good things. The things that I wanted to talk about was more or less the immigrant situation. Yeah, they are taking funding from our community. Like an example is like, I brought up about the EWA, which is the Earned Wage Access. In my community, they're trying to cut down all avenues in which Negroes or Black American people can get money. And I find like that's a problem, but yet still we can't get government funding There was black people who worked the whole entire pandemic who haven't gotten their COVID pay. Like, there's a lot of things that we were neglected from that do need to be addressed. One of the other things I wanted to bring up and shed light on is, how are these immigrants getting over here? We need to be looking at these civic organizations. I can give you an example. You can punch up Red Cross, for example. Red Cross, who built their legacy off of Charles Drew, which is the black man who invented something with the blood and stuff of that nature. You can look it all up, the specifics about that. But they built the legacy off a black man, but they're helping other people illegally crossing the border, grabbing maps and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff. They're just one of the many civic organizations that are weaponized against our community. You also have Lions Club, Kiwanis, Rotary. I think we're not as versed as a community about what do these world organizations do and what are their roles in our community and why are they operating in our community. If they're not allowing a black agenda or a Negro agenda or anything of that nature, then they should be boycotted. And some of these organizations were racist from its inception, where they did not allow black American people. That's why reparations should be across the board. It's not just a government thing. There's a lot of nonprofit organizations that were involved. So those are some of the players that are culpable of bringing these highly skilled quote unquote immigrants over here. And they're allowed to operate through these organizations to meet up with our politicians. So those are some of the things that I've seen and witnessed. And when you disrupt these things, you do get targeted. They will shut down your situation. And I have experienced that as well. So like, we do need to be very vigilant. And I say suing is the American way. We definitely need class action lawsuits and a lawyer that's not going to be looking for a payout, that's just looking for justice. So those are the two things that are some of the things I just want to highlight about based off of that PowerNomics thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Commander. Appreciate that. Yusuf, go ahead. You got the mic.
All right. I feel like before I'm what I'm talking or what I'm going to say now, I need to put a disclaimer. So just please listen to an open. So the brother was talking about immigration, and in no way do I think immigration is beneficial to Black Americans. However, I think that it's a waste of I shouldn't say waste of time, but I think it would be better for us to focus on what we can control. There is no amount of the United States can print as much money as it would like. So when we're talking about I mentioned I look at other groups as not so much of they're getting that $20 million, why that $20 million should be to us. But I look at it as an opportunity. So if the Latino, development organization, they got $20 million, then that means that I'm missing out on $20 million, not because they have $20 million, but whatever they did or needed to do to get that $20 million, why don't I do that plus more? Right. I generally think when we're talking about white people or whoever the case may be, majority of these folks are very mediocre. So there are a bunch of systems. I remember, old people, my grandparents are old, but they always, even my parents, you have to, work 10 times as hard. And I'm not saying you have to work 10 times as hard, but some of these things, I just want to make sure that, when we're talking about, PowerNomics, it's solution oriented. And I think oftentimes I just want to make sure that we're also, thinking about, the book was a great foundation of, resources to highlight and bring light to these concerns that Black people should be concerned about. I think PowerNomics is more than a decade old, so I believe the system of white supremacy is still the same. Right. I think the solutions that we need to create might not necessarily be in the book because of the advent of technology and things like that. I think it's our responsibility to think of to build on the solutions that are in the book and move it forward and think about all of the talents that we have together to bring these things to life. That's my only thing. I mean, we can. There's only a limited amount of things that we can do as far as to combat other folks, but there's a greater gain, for us to focus on our own community, galvanizing, and so on and so forth. Because regardless what other communities do or don't do, we'll be in a better position if we work together. And having these type of conversations and whatnot, that's exactly the type of activities that we need to be doing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm going to say this. I do agree. We need to just hell or high water, keep moving forward. We definitely need to do that, but we can agree. Most of us can agree with what you just said there, Yusuf, because we are hip to the square. You see what I'm saying? But the trolls that produce themselves once, when Dr. Claud Anderson showed up on Twitter last week, those people have demonstrated their level of ignorance because they have no idea what Dr. Claud Anderson's talking about. They can't fathom this, and they don't have the emotional maturity to accept the fact that we went to sleep. And instead of them looking at it and saying, you know what? Let me analyze this. Let me figure out how I can do better. They would much rather either go the way of the Cancun or just call everybody else an idiot and just deny it. So it's definitely a multifaceted approach because that's the only way we're going to bring other people into the fold to understand that, hey, this is the reality. This is the reality. And some are going to get into it and some aren't. DeAndre, you got it, and then Commander, you'll be next.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add too. Dr. Claud Anderson has a phenomenal plan in PowerNomics. I mean, it really addresses just about everything that we're looking at and what we're going through today. How we build our collective power. I think, as I said earlier, a lot of it comes down to us not focusing too much on the things that we can change and looking to the things that we can change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because what will happen sometimes is we'll get daunted by the challenge of building something new instead of just getting started. I think in so many situations, we as Black folks think that we gotta be outwardly competitive, and what I mean by that, our schools gotta look like traditional schools. That we can't have our own schools in a 5-bedroom house where we're teaching our kids, 3 to 4 hours a day.
Right.
We think that we have to have this 10,000 square foot building that looks, those kind of things like that stop us from truly having and effectualizing our power. Those things are good, but those things are not necessarily necessary for us to teach and build our own hospitals and clinics. I mean, we can literally a small clinic outside of a 5-bedroom house. We have to start looking at things like that. And these are things that we can do right in our community. These are things that we can probably, most of us can walk down the street and look at an old house or old building and say, you know what, if 10 Black people put $1,000 together, that's 10,000 to renovate this house. When we start looking at our power of mobilizing in those kind of ways, Dr. Claud, again, like I say, Dr. Claud likes to talk about this, building our own community. And I think that when we really start getting comfortable with us being together, eating together, living together, going to school together, us separating ourselves from all the riffraff and stop allowing others to define what our success looks like. We watch Hispanics do it. I know in my hometown of Temple, Texas, I watch so many Mexican families come in and they, 3 or 4 families to a 3-bedroom house. And I watched over the years, within 5 years, I kid you not, within 5 years, y'all, all those families had a home that was built from the ground up. And the thing that they used is the husbands and the cousins went to work in construction companies, learned how to do it themselves, and just bought land that was available and they built houses. And I watched them buy, 2 plots and build 3 houses on those 2 plots. Because for them, it didn't matter whether or not they had a big spacious backyard. They had their own home. And as they continue to move up, they're leveraging their resources. They're leveraging their assets. Now you can pass something on. Now you can go to a bank, and if you and 6 of your cousins all got a house that y'all can leverage at a bank and say, well, we're going to put these up as collateral. Now we can start our own construction company. We can start our own concrete company. We can start our own bricking and tiling. I watched them do it. And so I know that if they can do it, we can do it. We just have to be very intentional about how we do it. Again, I think one of the biggest things is going to be migrating to Black majority communities, counties. I think and I talked with Greg about this too. I think the smallest majority that Black people should have is a county, not a city. Cities don't control too much of anything. The smallest has to be at least a county. And the reason why, because counties have the ability to control their district courts, property taxes, and sales taxes. Those 3 things will do a lot for us to leverage our resources and our assets. So we can't be looking at LA, Chicago, Maryland, Baltimore, Ohio, Detroit. We can't look at those and say, oh, well, we're the majority in the city. That's not enough. You don't control the power of that community with just the city. Even in Texas, we got large numbers in Dallas and Houston, but in Harris County, because of how they group these things, they made sure that white people are still the majority, and so they get all those seats and they run the Texas legislature or whatever state legislator. So the smallest that we should be looking into is being a county majority, at least controlling 3 cities within that county, because then you can control at least 3 districts within the boards of commission and the district courts. Awesome. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about community building and, us being able to solve those problems. Like we gotta, again, I hate to say it, and I know it's not easy. It's not going to be easy migrating 10 million Black people out of Chicago. That's not going to be an easy task. It's going to be something that's going to be over the course of a couple of years, but it is something that has to happen. Yeah. We can't take Chicago. We're not going to be able to get that county because it's just not enough of those where it's going to be a significant impact. Right. Even if we did, it's just the reality, and we got to accept that and say, you know what? Let's move down to Jackson, Mississippi. Let's run these counties. Let's build up these communities. Let's get these rural grants. Let's leverage these resources that these counties and these states have, that we're missing out hundreds of millions of dollars by simply not controlling Mississippi and Louisiana. Right. Hundreds. I'm talking about, look, y'all, when I tell y'all, we are missing out on hundreds of millions. Y'all know that the state of Louisiana and Mississippi have access to ports. We can do international trade, getting resources straight from Colombia, Nigeria, Ghana, getting them through our ports. This is what we're talking about. Like, we have to get our mindset on that kind of economic development. So we're creating production. We're getting control over raw resources so that we can build our communities up. Just having those kind of things, would do a lot. I'm talking about we would see ourselves
change the
grow.
Trajectory.
It will. It will change the trajectory. And like I say, that's a 10-year plan. It doesn't even require us to, it's not 20 years. We can literally do this in the next 3, 5, and 10-year blocks. We could control at least 5 states in the United States of America if we are willing to collectively work together and put together that plan and strategy.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you.
Well,
I've done the work, done the research.
Let me say, oh yeah. Let me say this. Got some of the ladies on YouTube, Deontra, are in total full agreement. Got Lysandra Gillard talking about he's speaking facts. She said that I've seen an Asian family stay in a Habitat house with brand new cars. Shaking my head. And Kimball Hill talking about a great point. Umoja, collective work and responsibility, and a umoja. I'm pronouncing it all incorrectly. Cooperative economics. Lysandra's agreeing with you. She also said that I stay in North Kakalaki and experience how we are missing out on housing. So, you got the people in total agreement with you. Definitely in agreement with what Black America or Black American homeland been talking about, Black American state, talking about Black over here on the stage. I do want to kind of divert just a little bit because I see somebody on here that I see you following me now. There, bad gals. Uh, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and let you have the mic because I'm not quite sure where you're going or what your contribution to this conversation is, and hopefully, it's something edifying for us. Go ahead, you got the mic.
Thank you, sis.
Mm-hmm.
Peace to the room. How's everybody this evening?
We're doing great. How are you?
I'm excellent. I've been following Dr. Young and Dr. Anderson. Many of you don't know Dr. Young. Dr. Young is also another Black economist from Detroit. Dr. Anderson and he used to have some workshops in Detroit. I'm in Detroit now.
Awesome.
And one of the first things that they talked about was buying houses. So there were a lot of discussions that went on about this when Detroit crashed economically, and a lot of the banks went, they just went berserk about all these mortgages that people weren't paying for, and they started taking these houses back. So then we had a little period of craziness in Detroit where people were losing their houses for no reason. A lot of it had to do with mismanagement of the tax system in the city and them foreclosing on people who didn't even owe taxes. So a lot of, a lot of people lost their houses. Well, one of the things that Dr. Anderson told us was that eventually there will be a whole lot of houses available, and when they become available, you need to hurry up and get one. Well, I was living in Florida. I had left Michigan because I was just tired of all of everything that was happening. And I thought about it, and then I started checking real estate because I was going to real estate school, and I said, the best values are in Detroit. So I came to Detroit as a single woman, retired, no extra income, and I bought a house. And the bank made sure that they financed that house because not only did they want to get me in that house, they knew that there were certain neighborhoods where they had to stabilize and they had to create a way for people in that community to see that there was some investment being made. So when I bought my house, my house was on the market for $55,000. Now, it sat there for probably maybe about 2 months because the people who had the house, I had to find out who they were, not because I couldn't get to the house or get in the house or see the house. I had done all that. I needed to know who they were to find out why they were selling this house so cheap. And I found out they had some issues and they were trying to get liquid so that they could buy a bigger house in Detroit further over in University District. So that was a perfect opportunity for me. The land bank was giving loans and also grants to first-time homeowners. So there's a program in Michigan called NACA, and NACCA I think it's .org. No, it's NACA.org. This came about through the countrywide mortgage theft failure debacle that happened a long time ago. So they put these organizations in place to be able to help people get in houses, and they used a program that we all know about. Dr. Claud Young, when he was telling us, Claud Anderson was telling us, and then Dr. Young was telling us, listen, don't waffle. Get these houses. They're here. You can get them right now. They're basically giving them away. People have seen all over YouTube and all over the internet for about the past 10 years that you could come to Detroit and buy a house for $1. Yeah, there are some houses for $1, but they don't tell you that you got to pay the back taxes and you got to pay the water. Okay. Now, this is the thing. Dr. Young is the one he's gone now. He was here teaching us how to get these state grants and how to get organizations to pay all these back taxes and things so that we could get these houses. Dan Gilbert, who is not someone that I'm a friend of, but he has given a bunch of money to Detroit, is actually through the Gilbert Foundation, helping people get in houses. But let me just be clear. Rocket Mortgage is not really financing for Black people in Detroit. They want to refinance.
Yeah.
In other words, they want to take back what value you might actually be able to get into your house. So when I bought my house doubled in value in 3 years. And I will admit, I did some improvements. I put in a new power plant, new roof, full electrical, did a whole bunch of other kind of stuff on the inside. But the point was that the house was not vacant. The house was a really good house. It has great bones. It's a nice house. I enjoy living in it. And anytime I'm ready to sell it, I might have paid $60,000 for it. But right now, every time I get an update in terms of the value for the area and in terms of the real competitive value for the value of my house, it's rated on the most recent sales in the area.
Right.
The house across the street from me 2 years ago sold for $250,000.
Yeah, you're doing good, but that's a good CMA. Yeah, I know how those CMAs run. They're going to compare the sales that are properties that are similar to yours. Typically, that's within the year, and then what is currently active, at least for a year, and then whatever comparables are within those subject properties and that match with your home, then that's how that value is going to be derived. So if you just paid $60,000 and you got one across the street that's already at damn near $2,500, yeah, you're doing good.
It was 250. It was 255, in fact.
There you
it
go.
went for $255,000 a year and a half, a year and a half ago now. But the real deal is this. Detroit is full of vacant houses that the city has in a land bank. If you work for the city of Detroit, you get a discount, sometimes 50%, depending upon which part of the city you work for. So we all know somebody who works for the city. What we need to do is form some organizations that we can actually, as the brother said, contribute into so that we can become group block owners.
Well, and I'm going to tell you this because everything you're saying is spot on. And I actually, a couple of years back, I looked at one of those lists, and the only issue is that to take advantage of that particular program is you have to be residing there.
Right, you got to move to Detroit.
Yeah, you got to move there. You have to be a resident there. Yeah, and but
wait now. You can come and buy from the land bank, and you do not have to be a Detroiter because there are Detroit has an auction often, and you can go to the auction with cash, and you can buy a house. There was a house around the corner from me, 2 blocks over on Schaefer, near 7 Mile Road, and I know. If anybody in here is familiar with Detroit, you know what that area is like. It's a middle class area, nice houses, brick houses. Most of these lots are, pretty good size. You're getting about a quarter acre. So when you look at the value of the neighborhood itself, that's where you get your income. That's where you see your real value come back in, because quite honestly, the way the mortgages are going up and down right now, people are trying their best to get anything below 6%.
Right.
NACA as an organization can get you a mortgage for 0.25%, not even 1%.
Right.
0.25%. So if you even have bad credit, they will help you clean up your credit. They will help you with your down payment, and they will get you in that house. It might take a year, but during that period of that year, you could be preparing yourself to move to Detroit.
Absolutely.
So for a lot of people who are looking at living somewhere and they want to own their own house because they're tired of paying rent, and maybe where you're living isn't where you want to be, maybe you might want to come and check out Detroit for a while, because you can come here and buy that house.
Right.
And then not just flip it, because the people I just mentioned that got this house for $250,000, they bought it because a guy bought it from the people before them, and the people before them sold the house for $110,000, and they turned around and flipped it for $255,000.
Well, listen.
So when you see white people come into your neighborhood and take black houses
Gentrification.
and do this and then sell them to other black people, we need to stop that.
Amen.
We need to be the ones to immediately intercede in that and say, listen, I know you want to sell your house. So let me find out who has the network to be able to acquire your property so we don't let it fall outside of our generational blanket.
Amen.
That's where I want to see us going. And that is what Dr. Anderson spoke about the last time I was in one of his live conferences, because he used to do them all the time in Detroit. We would be able to we could pretty much wait once a month to be able to go see him because he was somewhere.
Awesome.
So I just want to encourage people to read his books.
Yes.
Like I said, I've been following him since the 70s. I'm 68. I'm proud to say I've been following him that long.
Yeah.
And I hope that the rest of you who are just getting turned on to him will understand that he, as well as Dr. Darity, they're talking about generational wealth building within our own community structure. Taking that dollar and hand to hand, passing it around. Just like the brother said in Rosewood, it needs to go around 365 times plus 30 days.
Well, Bad Gals, let me say this to you. Thank you for that contribution. I appreciate what you said, and some of the people on the YouTube channel, and you guys, the YouTube channel is in the Jumbotron, so please hit that link and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Purple Couch on the YouTube streets is saying that Naka is also in the DMV area as well. Lysandra Gillard said, I tried Naka, but the way they want you to miss work, I had to bring my documents every day to make sure I would qualify. so
there's a way to do that.
I'm sure. I just think she was just trying to share what her experience is. And she's also saying that she wants to buy a townhouse, and, she's in agreement with you. And also One Pap, shout out to One Pap. Thanks so much for pulling up, girl. Crazy about you. One Pap said, I tried to get my mom and her husband to buy the property next door. Nope. They declined. Mexicans brought it up, and 5 other properties in that block. Now my mom and my husband are now asking me what's going on. I tried to tell them what was happening, and it just now is what it is. So here's what I want to do, because we got EJ Kane. It's your first time being up here, EJ. I want to give you an opportunity to share or contribute to the conversation. Then we're going to go to Commander, and then DeAndre, I'm going to have you close us out. EJ, go ahead. What's tea?
Hey everyone, what's going on? Peace and restoration.
Hey.
I was listening to the conversation. I'm a big fan of Dr. Claud Anderson, and I like his model. And I had some like from the knowledge I gained from the military school, working these different jobs and stuff like that. I like to build my own, our own smart communities. We base these on land that we can find that's in rural areas. Maybe they're next to lakes. Maybe they have a lot of sun, or they have a lot of wind. With that being said, that we can use that and we can generate power with wind, solar, or hydroelectric generators. Hydroelectric generators helping us out with everybody has an electric bill. You move in these communities and you are we're going to start off with only Black Americans, because we need to set the tone for our own communities where we control, what's his name? Late Dick Gregory said, we control the banks, the businesses, the police, the politics, the schools, the hospitals. We control everything in these communities. So across, I done been off from east to west coast, north to south, and looking at different properties that fit these models that we could put these. I just based it on 40 acres, a 40-acre community where we generate power for the people that stay there. With that being said, crypto mining, a lot of us are not familiar with crypto mining. Some of these crypto miners out here making $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 a day just mining crypto, and they're using power to do it.
Wow.
So that could be a base on for our community. The people that's in the community working on these machines. I do a lot of networking. I do a lot of automation with robotics and stuff like that. And I'm looking like, man, okay, power is the essential backbone for all this stuff. You know, setting up stuff for like hemp farming. A lot of people are not familiar with hemp. You know,
Right.
We can use hemp for biodiesel. We can use it for plastics to manufacture things right in our community. We can also use it for clothing and papers. These are things that, like with Dr. Claud Anderson, where we talk about having our own like economic base. I saw him with he had the fish farm. I think one was in Detroit and one was in
Maryland. Someone. Mm-hmm.
Yep, Remote Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can also do that. They have I'm familiar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with indoor farming. Indoor farming, like now, if I had the funding, I could build a farm similar to Bowery Farms. They're based out of New York. I think they're in New Jersey and Texas now. They produce I think it's 3 million pounds of food in 150,000 square foot warehouse through vertical farming.
Oh wow!
You know, so
yeah.
So but that's gonna be power. You know, that's why I say like many people that live in these rural areas like Mississippi, Arkansas, Kansas, like all these different areas that have a whole bunch of wind or a whole bunch of sun, like they'll be in the front. We connect all these communities together, and we have our own blockchain.
Right.
You know, and this is our money that we're spending in each community. You know, that's circulating in our community.
Right. Well, and I'm going to tell you, I mean, it's so awesome to have so many people that have so much knowledge on so many things, and it's just good because we're able to, let's make sure we're following each other, and we all stay connected in this conversation, because hopefully we get through this book and we get through everyone else's experience and understanding, because there's some people in here that have read more of this book than I have. And so again, that is the whole purpose of having these conversations, because we get so much out of it. There's so much context added to it, so much perspective added to it. And that's what we need. Those are the conversations we need to have. We also need to make sure we're having these conversations so that if a troll does rear its ugly head, we got the talking points to shut they ass up. Okay? We can't continue to be nice to trolls. All right? We're not going to do that, because we let them go, let their negative voice and their misinformation go unaddressed. And then for those who don't know, well, they don't know that's a troll, and they just go ahead and buy into it. So no, if you're a troll, you're going to get checked. And we're going to continue to talk about the things that need to be discussed. Now, I do want to deviate real quick, because Black sent me this thing here, and I want to understand this. So, Black, you're saying that Federal Credit Union is saying that PNC Bank representatives told them that they have to close all of their accounts with them, saying that the reason given was that they no longer fit their business model. Can you expound on this a little bit? Do you have any?
Yeah.
What's up?
That was it's a historical credit union, Hill District Federal Credit Union. And this was a few years ago, where PNC Bank is one of the largest banks in the country, but it is Pittsburgh National Corporation, so it's the biggest bank in the city. Mm-hmm. And they used to deposit funds into this local credit union. And that gave them some ability to operate. But then they just, for whatever reason, they snatched it from this small one branch bank. And it really was designed, in my opinion, to essentially collapse the bank. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So luckily, and maybe through their hard work and diligence and some political pressure, First National Bank stepped up.
Okay.
So another white-owned bank did step in to replace what they took away. But this is, it really is it's shark-infested waters in the banking industry. I mean, they are competing with each other, and they're trying to essentially get competitors out of the market. And right now, so here's what's happening. First National Bank just gave them, originally they gave them $100,000, but they just gave them $1 million. But that's because they're investing $200 million into the community because they're in the process of gentrifying Black people out of this historically Black community. So it's a process, and it looks like on one hand, oh, you're giving us something, but what you're really doing is you're encircling us and setting us up to essentially eventually be taken over anyway.
Right. It's crazy. Wow. Thanks for that update, Black. That's crazy. Commander, go ahead. You got the mic, and then we're going to hear from DeAndre, and he can close us on out. What's up, Commander?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about Dr. Claud Anderson when he talked about a code of conduct when we're doing business amongst each other. I think that's something that we do need to institute in our community, but in the same breath that we need to be very vigilant in people who are harming our community, just making it bad for us to do business amongst each other. That is a part of building and strengthening what I would consider a code of conduct.
Right.
Like if you're out here extorting our people, doing our people dirty, you should get held accountable. There should be some type of repercussions for that negative behavior, saying that you're doing stuff that's in the interest of our community, but you're not delivering.
Absolutely.
Those are I think that's something that's very important that we should be discussing like off the channel. But that reinforces the notion about the behavior of a code of conduct that is expected for people to be a part of our community. You know, it's normally the other way around when we go to other people's community, but if we're talking about a Black state majority and stuff like that, like we need to be visualizing what is a code of conduct, what do we need to expect, and what are the repercussions for those that break those type of responsibilities, both male and female.
Right.
Because we have both males and females that are sometimes against the progression of our people. Sure. So those are just some of the things I think that we do need to like internalize and expect. Like there's going to be a rocky problem for the road ahead, because not everybody's in the interest of the collective. Right. But we need to make it a priority. Right. You know, let's make it mandatory that we express those type of ideas. No, it's all good.
Yeah, no. You're hitting on some stuff there, and as you were speaking, I was what I'm looking forward to is when we pull this up again, again, it's going to be pop up, y'all. It's going to be pop up because we're going to get through this book all cover to cover. But here's the thing: this 3 major impediments to Black competitiveness. 1 is maldistribution of wealth and resource powers, inappropriate behavior patterns. That's what I want to get into and see how Dr. Claud Anderson lays that out. And then lack of a national plan for empowerment. And he's also talking about a monopolized society and then a collusive monopoly, which kind of sounds like what Black was talking about that bank. So let me do this, resetting the room. You guys, please share the space out. The YouTube link is in the Jumbotron. Please like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm saying that to y'all on the YouTube. I'm saying that to y'all on the Twitter space. Hit the YouTube if you would, please. And then if you have this book, PowerNomics, pull up the next time we go live so we can all talk about it, because I think we've all learned a lot of things. So you're up on the stage. I see Black's got his hand up. So Black, you take priority, sweetheart. I'm going to let you go. We're going to hear from he and I. If you still want to say something, he, I, and then we'll hear from DeAndre. So Black, you got it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to I'm glad you went back to that bank thing. So this is part of the regulations, and I'm trying to find it online, but essentially this small Black bank had to, and this is the regulations, they had to put their deposits into a larger financial institution. They couldn't hold those deposits. And when the larger institution said, no, we've changed our business model, we're not going to hold your deposits anymore, they were essentially without anywhere to put the money that they had. So that essentially was going to put them in peril. And then this other place stepped in. But that is where the systemic issue comes in, because why would another bank that knows that this bank depends on having this place to keep their deposits, why would they even be allowed to do something like that?
Exactly.
That's the issue.
Exactly. without even really giving them, any significant period of time to get those funds put positioned somewhere so that they can continue to stay in business. And it makes me wonder, were they trying to entice them to, for the bank manager to go ahead and say, well, shit, y'all ain't gonna hold the money. Let me just put it in the trunk and drive on down the road. I mean, what's the realty? Nehemiah, you're on the stage. But you don't have your hand up. I don't want to overlook you. Did you have something you wanted to add? Yeah, what's up, baby?
No, I didn't. I didn't have my hand up. I don't know how I got up here. I was having bad connection, so I had to talk to get in. But I did want to say 365 plus 30. That's the process. 365 days and 30 days extra is how much we need to do to turn our money around with our dollars. And we were talking about the organizations, because that's what the city of Rosewood did. They turned their money 365 days and 30 days, plus 30 days before it left their neighborhood. And the organization aspect, if we can't build it, then be a flea to the fleas. Take over their organization. I've heard a lot of brothers on here and sisters on here that were with the armed services. Join the Veterans of Foreign War. That is an organization that does social products and things like that. There's many others, and they are nationwide. Again, some of us don't want to leave where we at, bro. I know what you're saying, but man, I love the weather in California. But I did want to say this: when they have these organizations, sister, what they do is, just like the brother was saying, the organization puts the money in the bank, so you're not personally going to the bank asking them for anything, because the organization can then write you a check if you want to start a business. These things are what's done outside, where the people say, well, show us this and show us the receipts. That's outside. There will be no receipts because it's through the organization. So a perfect example, Hispanic guy, I know his father, they were in an organization, and he got money through the organization and bought a commercial lot. There was nothing on the lot. He put a food truck there. A week later, he had 6 more food trucks come on, and they paid rent.
There it is.
After about a year, he built a restaurant. 6 months after that, he tore that restaurant down, built a smaller restaurant because this was a commercial lot, and then he built commercial property there, split in half. Now there's a juicer, a metro phone place, and 2 smoke shops there, all paying revenue. Now, last time I talked to the guy, I haven't talked to him in a few years, but he said when his dad dies, he's going to split it up. So one son will get the food business, and the other son will get the storefront business.
Yeah.
Generational wealth.
Yeah.
It's really not hard. We just got to practice it.
Right.
And once again, 365 plus 30 days. And God bless Claud Anderson, because like you, I've been listening to him for a very long time. I'm just been waiting for everybody else to be like, where's my people at?
Right.
We didn't see these people. We were so small in size and spread all over the world, but thankfully for the internet, we can talk to everybody now.
Absolutely.
There is no excuse and no reason why we can't do this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting me talk, and let me close my phone because my thing is messing up.
Absolutely. Thank you for contributing. Okay, so Commander, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna give you like a good 60 seconds, then we're gonna let Deandra close us out. I appreciate everybody for pulling up, contributing, just all the whole 9 yards. Thanks for pulling up, y'all. Appreciate y'all so much. Commander, go ahead and let me give you that good quick 60 seconds, and then Deandra, you can take us on out of here with it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I definitely want to make you guys aware. I wrote an article talking about the Better Business Bureau and the E-Verify. It should be used against some of these businesses that are not lineal or that are not a part of the lineage-based community. And what I mean is that these businesses are allowed to operate, and they might not be legit. We have missing children. We have a lot of things that are not accounted for. And these people are allowed to use these businesses as front shop for their operations, you know?
Yeah.
So we need to be challenging our Chamber of Commerce, our Better Business Bureau, and ask, are they investigating these people? Are they checking to see if they're in compliance with the state and federal laws? These are the same tactics that they use to shut down and kick out our people out of our neighborhoods so that we couldn't operate in our businesses, you know? So like, that's just something I just want to bring up just as a tool to weaponize against these individuals that are operating in our communities. We need to be very, very defensive and make sure that they don't get a dime in our community on all aspects and all fronts. So like, that's what I just want to conclude with. And if you are interested, you can go to my LinkedIn account, and like, I have like different business articles to talk about various different ways to basically hem up against immigration businesses that are used to be weaponized against our community to make a profit, no matter however they feel fit. All right. And we have to really keep that in mind, that they're coming in here bringing their criminality to our community. But yet still, they're thumbing their nose at the average day Negro, saying, what about Chicago? What about Detroit? But but I'm going to digress. But that's just some of the things to hem these clowns up so they won't be operating in our community. It shouldn't be another foreign barbershop when we have a lot of black people that are able to cut hair and they're getting railroad and benign out of that business. So that's just some of the things that I observe in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, you're right. Because I've seen it around. I've seen that too. I've seen it happening. Well, while DeAndre is closing us out, Commander, go ahead and you can feel free to drop your LinkedIn in the jumbotron. So people after this.
I got a large profile, but if they want to get all that stuff, that's from stuff that I wrote in my grad school. So like, make sure that you advocate and just a rule of thumb, people. Make sure you advocate and make sure that if you're quoting your ancestors, use them in your school papers and stuff like that. That's what matters. That's how you keep your ancestors' work alive and making sure that they get the credit that they deserve. Because there's a lot of people, a lot of sharks out there that like to steal our ancestors' work, and they don't get credit for that. And if you do run across those things, please take a screenshot of the book and send it to me. I definitely am curious in those type of individuals, because they're making a profit off of these intellectual properties, and they try to centralize themselves into the conversation of reparations. And that is a major issue with me from an intellectual standpoint, because they have no blood right to that conversation. So when we talk about lineage-based family, we also mean it in the guise of education too. Make sure you get your sources from a black intellectual or a Negro intellectual, etc. Don't be quick to grab the white man's stuff, because their information still might not be in our best interest. So just something for us to think critical about.
Sure. Thank you for that. And this conversation has gone, and it's gone way out. It's gone, the circle is large, and all of that just from talking about PowerNomics specific to Black Americans. This is a conversation that has to continue to happen, just as the Black labor, white wealth needs to continue to happen, because if they could manipulate that and overnight turn it back to the level that slavery was at, they would. So they're doing it in a very inconspicuous way, by they certain set of group of people getting their student loans taken care of, but others aren't. People getting their ass kicked and thrown in jail, but for one infraction when others aren't. People are going to, killing up all the folks and getting taken to Burger King. You know what I'm saying? So if they could reinstitute this stuff on a larger scale, they would. So these conversations have to go on, and they do kind of cover a lot of stuff, because it's not just flat blackness. We cover a variety of skill, interest, ability, talent, things of that nature. So again, I want to thank everybody for pulling up. Appreciate it so much. DeAndre is going to close us out. You guys follow each other, follow everybody on the panel, follow my YouTube channel, and DeAndre, you got it, sweetheart.
Thank you. I appreciate you. So I just wanted to bring it back to kind of like ending with what Dr. Claud Anderson said. And what I think is really important is Black monopolies. I think every Black person needs to put it on your mind, your heart, your spirit. Monopoly. And when you played that game of Monopoly, you owned the whole block, and if you could, you got the next block, and you got the corner block. That means you tried to own the whole board. If you that's the end of the game. That was the end of the game, was to own the whole board. And so what I mean by that, when we're looking at cities, I think, the thing with Detroit and all of that, and it's not a knock to the sister that gave that information.
Sure.
But in order for us to become a county majority in that county, we would literally have to migrate 300,000 plus black folks to have a significant power base to protect the assets. So it's not just enough for us to gain assets. That's not just the only part of economic development. You have to protect those assets once they're acquired. And you can't protect assets from a city basis. Like I say, it's hard to protect it from a county basis. You get a little bit more protected because, again, you could be the sheriffs, you could be the commissioner's court, you could be the DA, the district attorney, you could be the court system. But the best protection is going to be from a state majority. Monopolize these states. Black folks, get comfortable. Again, that's what he said. Also, the inappropriate behavior of black people. We can't sleep on ourselves.
Right.
We can't tell ourselves that we can't do it, that if we build our black majority, if we build a black state, they're just going to destroy it. No, we're not weak. We're not unlearned. We have the experiences of our ancestors, and we knew what we did wrong, and we can learn from that. We now have the right to bear arms. We have the right to control the National Guard on the state level. We have the right to control the police on the county level and on a state level. We have the means to protect ourselves in these days and times. So I think one part of that is eradicating self-doubt. Eradicate self. There should be no doubt in our minds that we can build a black monopoly. We can build a black majority. And this is going to take us forward into the future. Right. And I end with that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Deantra. Appreciate those. You said some good words. You also spilled the tea going into the next time we go live to discuss this book, because we're going to go through it. And those are the upcoming topics. 3 major impediments to Black competitiveness: maldistribution of wealth and resource powers, inappropriate behavior patterns. Let's find out what those are. A lack of a national plan for empowerment. He's also talking about our monopolized society, and he's making a distinction between natural monopoly and collusive monopoly, and then a shared monopoly. So if you have the book, read it, bring it to the next live, chime in on the conversation. Let's work. I've learned so much, and I'm the one holding the space. Okay. So if you got the book, bring it up. And if you don't have it, get it. The link to buy the book directly from Dr. Claud Anderson, so he can benefit directly financially from this endeavor, is in the YouTube chat, spin to the chat, and it should also be in the Jumbotron. So go to his website, get the book, get the information. Don't beat me here the next time we hold this space. PowerNomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America, from Dr. Claud Anderson. That's it, y'all. That is the podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Replay gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. And until next time, y'all, we will see ya when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the We Own Your Head podcast. Discussing topics that make you say, how and where can we improve as a society? From a Black American's perspective. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Catch this live, be ready to speak. This is a call-in show. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Let's go to work.